with the principle that try and do what is right, what is correct. In civil service, you are not there for your private interest. It is not possible for the politician to do corruption on his own. But the politician is also very intelligent. No civil servant or IAS officer should go with this notion that I am the boss. Everything that should be done should be as per the rule of law, as per the constitution, and for the benefit of the people. Civil servant has to be fair. He has to be impartial. He has to be neutral. Empathy, as I said in my book also, there is a chapter on emotional intelligence. And I mentioned out there that emotional intelligence is of great importance to civil servants. So corruption in the long run cannot lead to development. The faster you take a decision, the faster the country will move forward. Corruption should be a low reward, high risk activity. A civil servant must learn all the while.
I am your host Gaurav Garg and we welcome all our viewers to our show Amazing Authors. Today with us is Mr Alok Ranjan, author of the book Ethics for Civil Services and former Chief Secretary of Uttar Pradesh. The book talks about 100 cases studies with the answer associated with it. In this book we have talked how through ethics you can judge a human action if it's right or wrong. This book will be useful for all the leaders and aspirants and civil servants. We have also talked about great leaders, reformers and administrators in this book. So let us come and know about the books in detail from the authors itself. Welcome sir to our show.
Thank you Gaurav, thank you very much.
So the book is all about right and wrong in public and private life and values. Tell us about the book and what inspired you and what did you felt to write this book Ethics for Civil Service.
Yes Gaurav, I will share with you. Actually, ethics in public service has also always been a theme which has occupied my mind because I think it is very, very important for there to be ethics in public life. Of course, ethics is important in private life also. But as far as a civil servant is concerned, I think in his service career, to be an ethical civil servant is a great value. So this was always there in my mind. However, the immediate need for writing this book or the stimulus for writing this book came because this paper since 2013, Ethics for Civil Services, has become a mandatory paper for the civil service examination, the main written examination. The General Studies paper 4 is on ethics for civil services. And I was told by many people that not enough material is available for students to read, to prepare for this paper. There are some books and all, but not many in the market. And especially there is one section, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, half the paper is on practical, application of knowledge, which is on case studies. So case studies actually are administrative case studies where you have ethical dilemmas and you apply ethics. So there is not much available where a student can find out how to answer these case studies. So I used my experience of my 38 years in the service and I wrote those case studies on that basis. Some of them are real on my experience, some of them others have experienced. Some of them, of course, I have written on what could be a likely situation. And then I'm also trying to show how a case study should be answered, analyzed, and from the point of view of ethics. So this is why I think for the motivation behind my writing the book. As you will see, all the chapters of the book what I've written are as per the syllabus of the UPSC. Chapter by chapter what the UPSC has given in its syllabus, I have given in this book. And I have tried to bring forward the concept in a simple and lucid manner for a student to understand, so that he or she can then, in the examination, be able to communicate and express it in her own way.
So you have also talked about ethics delmia in many chapters from your experience of 38 years. So what all were your real life ethics delmia that you had to face in your journey?
You see, there were many, and that's why I mentioned them. There are about 100 case studies here. It's about 40 odd are what appeared in the civil service papers from 2013 onwards. The balance I've written most of them on the basis of my experience. You face a lot of dilemmas in public service. Number one is the question of supposing you want to do something very honestly and with a lot of integrity. You know what is right, what is correct for the public, for the citizens, for the people. And yet you get pressure from the top, from your top bosses, whether it is administrative bosses or political bosses. You can get pressure from the top for various reasons to do things in a manner which you think are not correct or are not ethical. So that immediately gives rise to an ethical dilemma. And sometimes, very often these days, you must be hearing that the officers, they bend down before the pressures and they go away from the ethical path and do something which is not purely ethical or honest or right thing to do. And that is not the way to approach civil service or civil life. Yes, ethical dilemmas I faced continuously during my career, and I always use the principle that try and do what is right, what is correct. For example, as you said, some examples I can give you. While selecting somebody for an important post, you want to select the person on merit. You have a committee of meeting, you select and you find out that Mr. A is the best candidate and he should be selected. But you get the pressure from the top that no, not Mr. A but Mr. C should be selected. It is a political pressure, or the minister pressurizes, or from various sources you get this pressure that Mr. C should be selected. Now you have two options. It's an ethical dilemma. Because your boss or your seniors are saying, or your, the minister is saying, you agree and recommend Mr. C, even though you are aware that Mr. C is not having the credentials or the aptitude for that job. At the other end is, you do not agree and you propose Mr. A, whom you think is the best. Now that can lead to a situation where the minister becomes angry with you, or your boss or becomes angry with you. You may have to face the consequences of that. So that is an ethical dilemma. What do you do? In one way, you may be able to safeguard yourself. In the other way, you may be in trouble as far as your professional career is concerned, but you have done the right thing. So this is one example. The various other ways in which, for instance, location of a development project somewhere or an industrial project, you are supposed to give a report. You know that this industrial project should be located in this and this place, X place. But the pressure is that no, you locate it in Y place because it suits certain other people. Their vested interests are involved in it, whether officers or administrators or politicians. And they pressurize you, you recommend Y. You could either recommend Y and you succumb to pressure from that side, yet that will be a wrong selection of the place for that development scheme or project. But if you select the right place, which is X, then that project will succeed also. Will do well. At the same time, you will be annoying your bosses, who can then transfer you out or take action against you or whatever it is. So these are some of the typical dilemmas that come to you. And I can say that I think the next question you will obviously ask me is how to resolve this ethical dilemma. So ethical dilemma, you see, its basic thing is, you have to keep in mind is that in civil service, you are not there for your private interest. It is not your private interest that is important. Ethical conduct for a civil servant means that public interest or public good, doing good for the public or public interest, serving that service to the public is of greatest importance and not your private interest. So your private interest of your career is not that important as, the public interest of selecting the right candidate. Because if you select the right candidate, he will not be corrupt, he will be honest, he will do well, there will be development. If you locate the industry or a project in the right place, the project will do well, it will succeed, it will give employment, it will lead to growth of the economy. So these are things where you have to commit yourself, and it's very important. So in ethics for a civil servant, this is why these are the kind of dilemmas which you are faced almost daily. Because in service, like a service in the IAS in particular, there are so many pressures, not one, but 5 to 6 various directions the pressure comes to you. Anything you want to decide. And that is where the question comes on you, how you are able to withstand that pressure and what kind of decision you take.
So you have also talked about political corruption in your book. So what do you think, without the help of civil servant, a political or a politician can do corruption?
Yes, very right, Gaurav. It is not possible for the politician to do corruption on his own. So very often there is an unholy nexus between the politician and civil servant. And this is what I say, that when the civil servant bows down before the politician because he wants some benefit for himself or herself. She might be wanting a good posting, or she might be wanting a good promotion, or wanting anything else, any other consideration, which is not correct. Wanting that and aligns with the political master to be in their good books. And this is what creates an unholy nexus, and that is when corruption reaches its maximum. If the civil servant is not willing to be corrupt, on own he cannot become corrupt, Because the files are processed by the civil servant. The proposal is put up by the civil servant. The politician, at best, he can get angry with the civil servant and get him transferred. But that what happens very often is there are ethical and moral civil servants of integrity who do not fall in line. They are removed. But somebody else comes in their place and he is willing to bow down or bend down or even crawl for that matter before then. He doesn't go by his principles at all. He is only looking at his career. So these things, have a very deleterious effect on the morale of the civil service also, and on the image of the civil service in the eyes and minds of the people. However, when I talk of political corruption, you must keep in mind also that beyond what is with the help of the civil servant, a lot is to do with the whole election process also, the political funding that is required. And lot of funds are spent by people contesting the elections nowadays, much more than the limit that has been imposed by the Election Commission, despite all the controls that have been exercised by the Election Commission. A lot more money is being spent. So that is why what happens is very often for funding their election process, the politician does indulge in all kind of corruption, and this I think very often he even does it. He doesn't need even the civil servant to assist him in doing that. He does it on his own. So all said and done, a politician realizes that he has the power to influence the career of a civil servant, and he uses that power to get the civil servant to submit to his dictates, and some submit, some do not. But the politician is also very intelligent. He realizes who will submit to him and who will not. So he doesn't bother with those who do not submit to him, but those who are willing to submit, then he is there to take maximum advantage of it.
So in our last conversation also I have asked you that what is your mantra to handle the politicians?
The mantra is very simple. Number one, you must realize that in a democracy, the politician or the elected representative is a master. That is the first thing that must be accepted. No civil servant or IAS officer should go with this notion that I am the boss. He is not. The boss is the elected representative, because that is how the scheme of governance is there in our country, and that is rightfully so. The elected person is there, is the master. However, the elected person is there to give his vision, to tell you what policy he wants. It is up to you to formulate the right kind of policy, assist him. He do not formulate the policy, he approves the policy, but you assist the minister or the politician in formulation of policy, and then it is your job to execute it properly. So there you have to see that you execute it without any corruption and execute it so that the benefit reaches the right person. But if there is interference there from the political person, that interference leading to corruption, then I think if you are an ethical person, if you are honest, you should not become a part of it at all. And there are two ways of doing it. One is you remain honest yourself and you ignore the whole thing. Let somebody else, meet the needs of the top man. The other is you will like to see you develop systems, you use technology, use other measures to see that corruption is controlled and it does not happen in any way. There is no channel directly to the top man where corruption is taking place. So my mantra always was that as far as my relationship with political people is concerned, I was always very courteous, very polite. I gave them the respect that an elected representative deserves. He should be given that respect because he is a representative of the people, and the people are the most important people in a democracy. They are there in a democracy. However, my job as a civil servant is to know what is the law, what is the rule of the law, what does the constitution say, and that everything that should be done should be as per the rule of law, as per the constitution, and for the benefit of the people. And if I find that anything is being done which is against this, which goes against the spirit of the law, which is unfair, which is impractical, which discriminates, which is wrong, blatantly unethical, immoral, then I should not and will not go along with it. This I always made it very clear without getting into a fight or a conflict directly, but by varying my conduct and my way I work. And believe me, no minister or no politician ever then pressurized me to do anything wrong. Because I said in the beginning, they are very good judges of people. They understand who will succumb and who will not, who will do my bidding and who will not do, and accordingly they put pressure.
So how important are ethics in a civil servant's life?
So very important. My opinion is, ethics in civil service, let me define it. Ethics in civil service is not only by being honest financially, not by taking money or not being corrupt. That is one very important part of being an ethical civil servant. Also being an ethical code of conduct. Behavior should be right. But there are many things which are part of the ethics of a civil servant. For instance, what is his attitude towards the weaker sections of society, the underprivileged sections? How does he react to the interests of the poorer sections of society? How does he look into gender issues? What is his reaction? What is his behavior towards women? How does he handle the entire gamut of activities related to public service? Does he deliver public services properly to the people? That is so very important. Does he give results or outcomes in terms of delivery to the people, to the citizens? All this is part of the ethical conduct of a civil servant. So his whole job, is related to this. And then civil servant has to be fair. He has to be impartial. He has to be neutral. And at the same time, he has to provide leadership, provide values in the entire organization. So I think ethics is very important for a civil servant. It will enable him to perform his job better and also to serve the people of the country better.
So how ethical conducts will help in the progress of a civil servant as an individual and as an organization?
It can happen maybe that if you are very ethical, you may get transferred, or your, as I said, political bosses may, sometimes you may even suffer a little bit. But on the whole, if you are an ethical civil servant, you will tend to gain because you get the respect of the people. You get the respect of the citizens. They value your character, your nobility, your integrity, your ethics. And therefore, a civil servant who is ethical will do well in his career also. There is no doubt about it. Eventually, nobody can discriminate against him on that. And also, as far as the government is concerned or the state is concerned, if civil servants are not having integrity, then so much of public money is utilized, so much of budget is there, and that public money, if it is not utilized properly in the interest of the citizens, then the taxpayers' money is being misutilized. Imagine, taxpayer is paying money for the development of the other sections of society, for the development of the state, and if that is not done properly and it is taken away in the form of corruption, then it is very detrimental to the entire state and government. So ethical conduct is important for the civil servant in his career also, and important, it is crucial for the state as such for its proper development in the interest of the people and the citizens.
So there are many cases we have seen that civil servant does not want to learn and they are in habit to say that, okay, don't give us lecture, we know everything and we know all the ethics. So what would be your advice to civil servants who have such behavior and to young aspirants who are just joining the civil?
Yes, Gaurav, this is one allegation which is always leveled against civil servants, and it is quite correct also that many civil servants think that after they have succeeded in the examination of the civil services and they have been selected and they become civil servants, they know all, they know everything, not only ethics, but they think they know everything about everything, and so they don't need to be taught or trained in anything. But this, I think, is a wrong attitude. You see, just like everything else in life, even in civil service, it's a lifelong learning experience. I'll tell you that I had 38 years of service, but till my last day I felt I was learning something. Till the last day. You see, always learning something new. There is scope to grow, to become better in every possible way, even as an administrator or as a civil servant. And therefore, even ethics. Somebody can say ethics, what is so great about ethics? We know that one should be honest or there should be integrity or something. No, but there is, as I said, situations come before you. There are dilemmas. You have to make a choice. How do you choose what? And what has what impact on you or on the society? All these are issues very important which you have to learn. And therefore, if ethics is, not lectured as such, but if you have a discussion on ethics, if you absorb the principles of ethics, you bring it in your behavior, you make it a part of your code of conduct, then it will make a difference to your life also as a civil servant. So I think civil servants should not feel that way, that no, we don't want to be lectured on this. They should have an attitude where they're open to learn new things, because while you're learning, you're growing. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, that means stagnation. And stagnation means you're not an efficient person or an efficient civil servant or anything. So this is very important. A civil servant must learn all the while.
So you have talked about great leaders, reformers and administrators in your book. So whom do you admire and respect and desire to follow in your footsteps?
You see, there were many administrators whom I really admired during my career, the scene, and they have done great jobs. There were people like, I learned a lot from my chief secretary like Mr. Yuval Narayan was there, an excellent chief secretary, always smiling, always democratic, always encouraging people to put forward their views. At the same time, building a team, I learned from him how to build a team, how to see that without creating too much of a noise, very peacefully and calmly, make the organization move towards its goal. So they are people I noticed, and then in my whole career I have noticed people like district magistrates, young boys and girls who go to districts. They are leaders, many of them. They have delivered outcomes like anything. They have done new things where they have gone, achieved a lot of new things. They made a difference to the society wherever they have gone. So all these things are very, very important. So I will say that I have learned a lot from so many of the administrators in my career. So many of them. I can't possibly keep naming all of them. But in people in the UP cadre, even in Government of India where I went, there were so many officers, both my seniors, my juniors also, from whom I learned a lot, whom I noticed how they were achieving goals, how they were getting things done. It was a great learning experience. And also the ethical part also. There were many civil servants I learned from them the importance and value of ethics. There were civil servants who gave up their prestigious assignments just because they stood up for the value. They stood up for some ethics. They said that we will not compromise in anything, in any way. So that was a great learning experience all through my career.
So how important is empathy according to you?
Empathy, I would say, is of great importance. Empathy means understanding the other person's point of view fully. In public service and as a civil servant, you are supposed to solve the grievances of the people. When somebody comes before you, if you do not understand what that person is going through in his mind, how that problem which he is facing is troubling him, and you just behave in a very standoffish kind of manner as a bureaucrat or an administrator, in a very cold manner, and you're not going to satisfy him or solve his problems in any possible way. So empathy enables you to understand the genuine problems that people are facing, the genuine problems that a person is having, his whole emotional issues, his whole personal issues, and holistically you are able to see the human being. And if you have empathy, then you can really genuinely resolve the issues that are confronting people. You can genuinely also then command a team. If you understand your own team people, if you have empathy for them, then you can command them, and then they become a genuine team that's going towards one goal which everybody has to meet. Empathy, as I said in my book also, there's a chapter on emotional intelligence, and I mentioned out there that emotional intelligence is of great importance to civil servants. And emotional intelligence is what? One is, of course, self-regulation. Second is self-awareness. Third is motivation. But fourth is empathy, a very important part of emotional intelligence. And a person can be highly intelligent academically, having the highest possible IQ, but if he doesn't have empathy, doesn't have compassion also. Along with empathy, I will add compassion. Compassion is also very essential for a civil servant. Empathy, compassion, understanding, concern, they're very important issues for a civil servant. So, on the whole, yes, empathy is a valuable thing for any civil servant to have.
So you have talked about honesty and integrity as the first value of civil servant. And you have also talked about the political corruption. Can these two values be a hindrance in his or her progress as a civil servant?
No, that we already discussed, that it can happen that sometimes you may not be appreciated for your honesty or integrity. If the politician is not honest, if he is corrupt, he then wants you to toe the line and you're not doing it. He will not value it, but may become upset with you or angry with you, and that may lead to some suffering. You may get transferred, you may get posted to some unimportant post, or sometimes even some inquiries may get instituted against you falsely. But that a little bit you have to face everywhere in any occupation. Occupational hazards are there, and that occupation, when you stand for your principles in life or your ethics in life, you have to be ready to face some kind of problems or issues at times. And because that is, as I said, it's also a part of your character then. How are you able to withstand? What is the point of saying that I'm ethical if you bend down to the first pressure that comes before you? And then you're not ethical really, then you don't have the strength of character to stand up. So that means really that if you want to be ethical, if you are ethical, it means you should be prepared that sometimes things will not go the way you want. But then that is the price you have to pay for your value system, and you should be prepared for it.
So what do you think? Corruption and progress are interlinked?
Corruption and progress are interlinked. Well, some people give this theory, what you're saying. I also read this somewhere, that somehow they say that if you grease the machinery moves faster, and machinery moves faster, and so there is greater growth and greater development. So they say there is no harm in having some kind of greasing of the machinery. There's some theory I've read somewhere where they also say that make corruption an acceptable kind of a thing. Like in a tender or something, include that commission part, 10%. The commission has to go include that as part of it, so that at least if that is paid, but things move faster. But I on the whole don't agree with this. First, I think corruption is not linked to this. You can't, it is a part of greed actually. Corruption comes from greed, and for greed there is no satiation. No amount or anything, even if you give him or allow him a certain amount as a commission which may be made legal or valid, he or she will not be satisfied if he or she is corrupt. They will have greed inside them. They will have need more and more. They will demand more and more. There is never any end to this kind of a thing. And on the whole, corruption actually means that you're misutilizing public money. And when you're misutilizing public money, that means the amount of development that should take place with that money is not taking place, but 80% or 70% of that is taking place. So then that is not linked to development at all. So corruption in the long run cannot lead to development. It cannot. It is anti-development basically. It is against the interest of the people basically. It is misutilization of public funds and money. And therefore, in no small terms can I say that you should condemn corruption in any possible way. And it is part of your ethical conduct of a civil servant that he should not only be himself honest and ethical, but he should see that around him systems are put in place where corruption is controlled, because corruption ultimately is not for the benefit of the society or for the people.
So what are the basis of good governance?
Well, good governance means that you should be accountable, you should be transparent in your working, you should be fair, you should be impartial, you should be objective. Then, above all, you should be a leader, you have to have leadership qualities, you should have a clarity to have a vision, to have goals, to align the team to goals, you should have team building capacity, you should be able to motivate and inspire your team. You should have the capacity to monitor. This is good monitoring. All this is part of good governance, and ultimately good governance also means is, are you able to deliver the outcomes to the people? Supposing you are in the health sector, to provide the best possible health care in the cheapest possible manner to all the citizens of the country. If you are able to do that, that is the test of good governance. So the test of good governance is in the output, in the outcome, in the results. Not only in whether you utilize the resources or not, financial resources, but whether you achieve the results, and beyond the results, whether you achieve the outcomes. That becomes extremely important and has to be borne in mind. And therefore, I think this is what one must focus on.
So civil servants have too much pressure on them. They are supposed to be master of all. And it's for a human being, it's not possible to be master of all. So what's your opinion on that?
No, civil servants, in fact, particularly that is about the IAS, because they hold different kind of positions. This kind of thing is said that they're supposed to know everything. But actually what happens is, there's a whole orientation that is developed in your service over time. Once you are in the districts and all, you're exposed to all kinds of working. And that helps you in whichever department you may go in understanding the problems of the department. Then actually it is a whole habit of how to identify a problem, how to identify the crucial issues, how to prioritize them. Much of the working of a top manager or leader is basically in the process, in how you understand issues and how you tackle issues, how you have the decision-taking capacity and how you have the capacity to execute your decision. It is not that you have detailed knowledge of each and every subject or each and every domain. That is very important, because it is that experts are there to guide you in that. But a civil servant who is coordinating is his main role, providing leadership is his main role, taking decisions is his important role, monitoring and motivation is an important role, and doing things as per the law is an important role. However, it is not so vital that he has very detailed domain knowledge. And whatever domain knowledge is required for him to be that leader, that is not difficult to gain in any subject if you are intelligent enough and you have that kind of training in your mind that you very quickly analyze what are the crucial issues, come to that and try solving them. That problem solving approach is there. Then you can be a genuine leader, and that's what a civil servant has to be.
So any situation where you were overruled by your political boss and has to take action according to the decision, even though you don't believe in that particular decision?
Yes, I will say that it does happen at times that one was overruled on decisions, but it don't happen too many times. That was also I will share. Once if I could put down something on my paper, and also I used to have this habit of not only putting it on paper but also try and convince the bosses that this is what is right and this is not right. And more often than not, the politician is also very intelligent, and if you explain to him, he understands. People don't tell them the truth. They don't tell them the facts. If they tell them the facts, the politician more or less always understands. And if it does happen sometimes, it is not you have to not to win every battle in life, no? It does happen sometimes you are overruled, Sometimes you make some recommendation. At the top, they do not agree with your recommendation. It does happen. It's not it doesn't happen. I can't immediately talk of so many things, but it happened not once or twice, but many times it would have happened. But that didn't make me give up on anything. Then I thought of how, if I have to get it done, how I should represent the whole idea to him, come up again with a proposal, again, communicate myself. Maybe I have not communicated properly. And so if you do it that way, you are able to handle these kind of situations.
So what are the major things which influence election?
Elections? Elections actually, there's a beautiful exercise, the whole election. I think the bureaucracy needs to be complemented, and the entire bureaucracy, the magistrates in particular, to conduct these elections, because it's a huge exercise, taking the polling booths right to the last village and to the last voter and getting the voting done and the counting done. And I think the Indian bureaucracy, which is somehow people do not rate it very high, they should realize that the kind of thing that it does in the election is something dramatic. It is no other country, I think, would be able to achieve the way we do the elections in India. It's a matter of pride for us. So elections are a matter of great management, are a process of great leadership, and a proper and detailed coordination between various people. And everything has to be done on time, like clockwork, absolutely, and with a lot of integrity and honesty. So elections are a test of all this as far as the officers and others are concerned. Of course, for the politician, election is for communicating his message to the people, communicating the message of his party and trying to get as many votes as possible. He has to use whatever tactics or strategy they have to use politically to make this happen.
So what is Article 311 Constitutional Protection of Civil Servants?
Well, 311 only says this, that UPSC has appointed a civil servant, Union Public Service Commission. So if any action has to be taken against a civil servant, like if you want to have major punishment awarded or termination or dismissal or any such thing, then if there are charges against him, you do an inquiry, conduct an inquiry, but you put up the entire thing before the UPSC, which then takes a final view in the matter. The idea behind this actually is that to protect the civil servant from arbitrary actions. What happens these days, and believe me, it is happening also, that many political parties, they have their favorite civil servants and others who are not their favorites. And then they start taking action against those who are not their favorites. And they try to even hold inquiries against them and punish them. So if this protection is not there, then it can happen that a political party will hold you to ransom, and more such issues will happen whether civil servants have to start succumbing to the whims of the political master, because then he realizes he has nowhere to go. Right now, at least there is UPSC which wants to see how if you are being punished, whether you are being rightly punished or wrongly punished, whether proper charges have been framed, whether proper inquiry has been done or not done, and whether you have been given an opportunity to present your viewpoint. So that a sense of justice and protection is there. So that protection is important for a civil servant, I think. Many people feel it should be removed, and that protection is too much and civil servant is too secure. But no, they don't understand the reality of administration. The reality of administration today is very different. The political master is there, he is related to political parties, and they can make life miserable for you if you give them that complete power over your career. There has to be some institutional mechanism where your rights are protected, where your sense of fairness is there with you.
So what all reforms will you suggest in civil services?
So civil services, major reform has to be that civil servant has to realize that circumstances are changing, the environment is changing, the world is changing. Today, I think a very major thing that has to happen is civil servant has to be responsive to the changing needs of the new modern technological society. The country today has to move forward at a very fast pace. If we want to become a developed country by 2047, we have to move very, very fast. Therefore, there has to be fast decision making. There has to be fast implementation. There has to be fast understanding of issues. And there has to be innovativeness. There has to be creativity. There has to be critical thinking. There has to be a problem-solving approach. So today, a civil servant cannot be happy by saying, I have maintained the status quo. Earlier on, they used to be happy saying that I am maintaining the status quo. I am following the rules and regulations and processes. No, it's all right. You must follow the rules and regulations. It's all right. But amend that rules and regulation which is not allowing you to be dynamic enough or to take decisions fast enough. Because today, the faster you take a decision, the faster the country will move forward. The better decision you take, the higher the growth rate of the country would be. And technology you have to understand. Bring in technology in governance and administration in a big way. A civil servant must understand that today. That today you have to leverage technology as much as possible for bringing about good governance. So all these things are important today in today's environment, and this is my advice to all civil servants that they must change their attitude, they must change their mindset. They have to become problem solvers, not problem creators. They should know how to get things done, not how to get things say no and not getting it done. So that is the easiest thing, and sometimes civil servants resort to that. By saying, oh no, this problem is there, this rule is not there, that regulation is not there, this cannot be done. No. If something is good for the people, for the betterment of the people, then you have to see how it can be done, how it should be done. If rules and regulations have to be amended for that, you have a procedure for that, you have a process for that, you move for that. But attitude should be that of delivering results.
So you have talked about many case studies in your book from your 38 years of life experience. So how deep did you dig from your past to remember all those case studies and put in your words in your book?
I dug a lot from my past, basically, just all my experience, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. But those kind of situations, I've seen, I have faced, where these things happen. And how you handle that situation, I've tried to put forward in my book, and those who read my book will find how I have handled those kind of situations, or I advocate how the situation can be handled. For instance, supposing an example is there that you are an engineer and you are responsible for a particular bridge being built. You know the quality is bad, so you want to, pull up the contractor, but you are getting pressure from the top. Don't pull up the contractor. Just give a report, it is all okay. Because this project has to be completed on time. The minister is coming to inaugurate it. It has to be done within 1 month. Then the question is, you allow that to happen, later on the bridge collapses or the quality is poor, then the nation suffers. You can't allow that to happen. So you have to see how do you handle it. If you, give a report against the contractor or take action, your bosses are going to get angry. So these are kind of situations which come up, which I have handled out here. Then I have also been, brought out things like political influence is not always wrong also. Very often the political person understands the right thing also, which many bureaucrats don't understand. They know the reality at the field level, and sometimes they tell you the right thing. And also one must understand that a politician is also responsible to his voter. So he speaks differently in front of his voter, but he may not put pressure on you to do anything illegal, but he will always communicate his voters' viewpoint before you forcefully. So that should not be taken amiss, or should not be taken with any anger, or that kind of feeling should not be there. So these are the issues which are very practical, and the 100 case studies, and in the chapters also, I have talked about some incidents which bring about these things very well, and for those who read it will get an understanding what kind of problems are faced by civil servants and how those can be resolved.
So what are different agencies to deal with corruption, and tell us about those agencies?
So there is Chief Business Commissioner is there now, CBC, Government of India level. His body, only about 3 people are there, but CBC is there. And then under the supervision and guidance of CBC, there is of course CBI, then there is the Enforcement Directorate. Then there are various other specialized agencies also working for specific issues of crime or others which are related to it. But as far as corruption is concerned, at state level, the anti-corruption department is there, the vigilance department is there. All these people are dealing with corruption in their own way, and they conduct inquiries, they take action. And the important thing, of course, is to see that it is all done very fairly and correctly, and the honest does not suffer. Very often it so happens, many times it happens that a person may be honest, but he suffers even though he has done something in a bona fide manner. And very often those who are dishonest, they are very clever in trying to covering their tracks, so they don't get caught. But so the system should be such where the dishonest gets caught, but the honest, if he is bona fide, even if there is a mistake made, the mistake will be made in administration and decision making. He is able to, he is not able to, does not get penalized for that. I think that is very important. Otherwise, basically there is a system we have in state and central of agencies who are handling and taking up issues of corruption. They should be handled as fast as possible. The courts also should take decisions on matters that come up regarding corruption before them as quickly as possible. So that, actually it's very important. Corruption should be a low reward, high risk activity. Today, corruption is increasing because it has become a low risk, high reward activity. So people get high rewards from that, and very few people suffer, so they think it won't matter. But when it becomes that majority of becoming corrupt are caught and they suffer, and so it is a high risk activity, and the rewards of corruption are not high enough or low, then by itself people will, become more honest and move away from corruption. This is what I feel.
So what would be the golden rule to answer case study questions in the paper?
Yeah, case studies actually, first of all, read the case study very carefully. Every line of the case study matters. It tells you something, what is there involved. And so when you are answering that case study, every line has to be taken into account. So understand the subject matter very clearly. Then when you are answering, understand the question very clearly. A, B, C, D, whatever is asked, or if you are given alternatives, see the alternatives very carefully. And then you should try and, even if you say this alternative is not okay, this should not be done, then you should say why it should not be done. Give reasons. There should be reasons, and the reasons should come on basis of ethics of civil services. And this is not ethical for this reason, or this is not correct for this reason, not legal for this reason, and that is why this should not be done, but this should be done, because this will send the right kind of a message. This is an ethical kind of an activity or ethical conduct. So all this has to be kept in mind when you answer a question, that you first understand the case study, give a short summary of the case study in your answer, and then move forward and give very analytically, examine the question, critically examine the question, and give your answer on the basis of the ethical principles which you have learned. And if the ethical principles are there, you can write down also. Then as per this principle of objectivity or transparency or accountability or fairness, this is what should be done. That's all it should be.
So while writing the book, were there any surprise came in front of you that okay, this has also happened, and it was basically back of my mind?
Oh yeah, many ideas while writing I suddenly remembered many things which I had forgotten. It came to my mind, and many incidents and many issues, many personalities came to my mind, and that helped me in writing the book better, maybe in putting forward my idea. So it kept on coming. So once you start writing, that then the whole kind of thing opens up, and more ideas keep coming. So many things which I don't even remember off and on just now, they come to the mind.
So post-publishing, when the first copy of the book arrived in your hand, what was the feeling?
I like writing and I like reading also a lot. But as a writer, there's nothing more happy than holding a book which is written by you in your hands. It gives great pleasure. Because you put a lot of yourself in a book. A book may be 250, 300 pages. But to write that, you have to read so much, you have to understand so much, you have to think so much, you have to put in so much of pressure and hard work. So a book is sum total of it takes a lot of your energy, physical, mental, spiritual is there, all in the book. And so ultimately when the book comes in that form, it gives you a great feeling of happiness and satisfaction. That yes, I have been able to achieve this. And you wish that whatever you've written gets communicated properly to the people and actually does help people.
So post getting your first copy of the book and you reading the published book, was there anything you would have liked to change?
No, I am happy with what I have written. I am happy, but if supposing later on I write a second edition or think I will revise, I may add some more incidents, I may add some more case studies, I may add some more experiences which, as I said, even after retirement I keep learning when I read in the newspapers of what is happening around in the world. So you keep learning, keep growing every day. So therefore, even a book should be a living document, I feel. And every 1 or 2 years, I would like to revise the books I've written to add more to it from whatever I keep learning every year.
So which is your favorite chapter in the book?
No, my favorite, every chapter I've written is favorite for me. But yes, as I would say, ultimately this about corruption, with the chapter which I've written, or about probity in civil services, all these chapters are very close to my heart and they are important. And at the same time, the contribution of philosophers and all to ethical conduct is also an important chapter. So, but all said and done, I still like the case study part the most. Because there I was talking of my genuine life experiences. And so answering them made me feel happy, and that part I liked the most.
So post reading the book, what should reader expect the outcome from the book?
Well, he should understand what is ethics all about. What do you mean by ethics? And what do you mean by ethical conduct? Then what are the ethics which are relevant for a civil servant? Then how problems arise or dilemmas arise or challenges arise to those ethical issues? How those ethical issues can be resolved? What kind of genuine problems you get in real life as a civil servant which are having ethical context, and how you tackle them? All this is of great importance. And this is what I think is what, after reading the book, you should be very clear on what an ethical civil servant should be like, how he should think, how he should act, how he should behave, what should be his conduct. I mean, That is the outcome that should come from the book.
So any future plan to write the other book, and what would be it all about?
I am writing another book. I am writing a book on, you see, we do a lot of planning every day. And we say plans are very good, or policies are very good, or in private sector, we say strategy is very good corporate strategy. But the question comes of execution of the strategy, or implementation of the policy, or implementation of the plan. And that is very, very vital, where people fail, actually. Even most intelligent people I found sometimes fail because they are not very good at handling situation of execution, because it involves dealing with people, handling a team, getting things done. So how really this can be done? These are very, very important issues. So next book I am writing on this only. Implementation is the essence on this thing, in which again I've used my experience of my career and of those of other civil servants who have done well in life and others in the corporate sector also, to see how things, it is the execution which is so vital. Without execution, any amount of planning, any amount of strategy, any amount of policy making would be of no avail.
So as a child, which was your favorite book?
Oh, I read a lot of books from when I was a child. I was always, a voracious reader. And I think from class 3 itself I started reading, starting with Enid Blyton at that time, moving on to Agatha Christie. Then P.G. Wodehouse was of course a great favorite, an all-time favorite, P.G. Wodehouse. And I moved up, I liked Somerset Maugham and his novels and his short stories. I liked Thomas Hardy. And then I moved on to Ernest Hemingway, who was my favorite writer. And then finally Gabriel Garcia Marquez now, who was my favorite writer. So always, keep moving from one author to another. But this is about fiction books, but non-fiction books also. I really enjoyed reading. I enjoy reading books on history. I enjoyed reading books on philosophy, on social sciences, politics, so many things, international relations. I enjoy reading all these issues.
So if I asked you to summarize your entire book, how would you summarize it?
Well, it is a book of ethics. It is a book which shows you what ethics is all about. It is a book which tells you what ethical philosophers or moral philosophers have talked about, whether they are Western or whether they are Indian, whether what the Indian tradition about ethics has been. Then I give you real life examples of civil service and how a civil servant can become ethical, what dilemmas you face, what challenges you face, then what is probity in civil service, what are the aptitudes that should be there in a civil servant, what should be his mindset and attitude, what are the institutional mechanisms to ensure that there is integrity in the civil service, what is the importance of being honest and credible, how honesty and corruption are issues which are so important for a civil service in his or her life, and then also real life situations or case studies have been given to understand. And the case studies cover a whole lot of issues from different aspects of a career of a civil servant. So I think in sum total, this is a complete book in my opinion about ethics of civil service.
So what all are the mediums from where a reader can order your book?
Well, you can get my book on Amazon and Flipkart. Both they're having this. Plus, it has moved to the bookstores also in most of the cities. It's available with the wholesalers and retailers, and particularly in areas where students live, where university areas and all that, all those shops and all this book is available. And of course, Amazon and Flipkart you can always order.
Thank you very much for interacting with us on your book, Ethics.
Yes, thank you very much. Here is a book I'll show you, Ethics of Civil Services. This is the English edition, and there is also the Hindi edition, Lok Seva Mein Naitikta. So I think keep in mind, the important thing is there is a Hindi edition of this. I think for all those people, readers or civil servant aspirants who want to study the subject in Hindi, it is available in Hindi as Lok Seva Mein Naitikta.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time and the interaction.
Thank you, Gaurav. It's always enjoyable to talk to you.
Same here, sir.